welcome to Talkin Business. I'm Joe Catrambone, CEO of Stuart-Martin County Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure today to have a really nice person. You know, I'm very fortunate in my job. I'm surrounded by really nice, special people. But no matter how nice or special people are, there's always some that rise to the top. And Jason Berger is one of those guys. He's delightful. He's got a great sense of humor. He's a professional. He's always got a smile on his face, and I'm always happy to see him. Jason, I appreciate your coming here and spending some time with me.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
So I'm going to read a brief bio on you, and then we're going to just shoot the stuff. Okay?
Love it.
Okay. In 1998, Jason graduated from the University of Florida, go Gators,
Go Gators.
College of Law with honors. He proudly served the people of the state of Florida as an assistant state attorney for 11 years. Jason has personally tried over 100 jury trials. His trial experience includes wrongful deaths, first-degree murder, DUI manslaughter, and sex crimes. Pretty interesting stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Which one you enjoyed best?
Oh, you feel good when you do it. You
Yeah,
absolutely feel good.
I'm sure you do. So we know each other, but some of our viewers don't and won't. And so I always like to ask people, what brought you to Martin County? How did you get here?
So it's a great question, which I will keep to a shorter story. So I started after University of Florida at law school. I started as a prosecutor in Orlando, and we were 3 years in. And my wife is from a small town on the water in Indian Atlantic, Melbourne.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And I'm from was a small town on the water, Annapolis, Maryland. So we were driving across the Indian Atlantic Bridge 3 years in, and we were thinking about where do we want to raise children and a family. And she said, "You want to move?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so I had a friend in the state attorney's office here in the Treasure Coast in Fort Pierce, and met with the state attorney, Bruce Colton, got
sure.
hired. And,
Well, yeah, Bruce,
and
great.
since, 2001, we've been here the whole time. We absolutely love the Treasure Coast. What a gem.
And you came from?
I came from Annapolis, Maryland,
Is that where
to
you were?
Orlando
Is that
after
where you
law
were
school.
born?
Yes,
in
born
Annapolis,
and
Maryland?
raised. Yep.
That's an interesting place. A really interesting place. You know, with the academy, the Naval
Yep.
Academy.
Oh,
and everything.
absolutely.
I remember going there. In fact, I went there when we were in high school. They had a scrimmage of 15 or 18 high school football teams, and I was on my high school football team. So they took us to lunch, obviously in the cafeteria. I'm Italian. I never saw food that wasn't red. So they had chicken a la king.
Oh.
I said, what's this? If it ain't red, I don't eat it. So that was my first experience eating chicken a la king in a food that wasn't red. And I liked it ever since.
Yeah, it's a great place. And I can tell you for Florida, so Grandma lived in Fort Lauderdale, and every year from baby up to 18, we would go for Christmas break. And I would go to Florida. I would love watching the bowl games on TV. You remember the when you would get a newspaper with a quarter? So I would go and get the news. I'm a big sports fan, so I would get the newspaper. I would read the sports page, and that's when Florida State, and Miami, they all were great. And I just fell in love with this state, and what a wonderful, our weather's great. Everything about Florida is just great for me.
I wouldn't live or want to live anywhere else in the world. If I had my choice, I wouldn't live anywhere else. This is right where I'd be.
I'm with you, Joe.
It's just a great place. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great schools, great education. I mean, what's there not to like? You know?
I'm with you. I wouldn't go anywhere else
Yeah,
either. I
yeah.
absolutely love it. And the Treasure Coast, we live in a real gem.
Oh,
Martin County
no
is spectacular.
question. Yeah, no question about it. Tell me a little bit about you've been in a legal profession, what, how many years?
26
Okay.
years.
So like most industries, there's been change over the years. Some are good, some set some industries back, you know. So what do you see, or what do you foresee that's changed or changing in the legal profession?
So the technology is one of the biggest
You know, that's in
issues,
everybody, yeah.
and so right now, even to this day, we have some Zoom court. We had no online court, and we dropped on a dime and we went online immediately, and the attorneys were having hearings online on a Zoom hearing. Now, our judges in the Treasure Coast, they prefer, and as do I, if you're going to litigate, you want to be face to face asking questions so you can see the true person with their responses and their body language, etc. But for the hearings that are non-litigation, conference calls, etc., you don't have to drive back and forth to court. You don't have to bill a client, which is good for the client for your drive time. That artificial intelligence is getting to be a big play in the legal industry, and how do we handle that? How do we handle that ethically and professionally so someone's just not copying and pasting and they don't know whether it's accurate law or not? So some of those issues have really come into play, and I definitely think the biggest change that I've seen is the technology. Like when I was starting, when you would file cases, you would have to mail a copy to the court, mail one to opposing party, keep one in your. So you had 3 copies of everything. Now we scan an email, and I'm paperless in my office, and I like that. I don't have big files full of paper. So that's a really nice change, being able to e-file everything as opposed to copying and the stamps and the postage, etc. So it's a good change.
There's no downside.
Not for me. I mean, some people, you still have old school lawyers that love to have a paper file,
Yeah,
and so they can.
yeah,
But I do like it where we're e-filing, etc.
yeah. I'm kind of a paper file guy, but I'm really getting away from it. But you know, I just wanted to feel it and touch it, you know, and see. I'm not I don't enjoy staring at a screen and reading the screen. I see people reading books on a laptop, reading a book. Yeah, I I'd never
Oh
read.
yeah, and these days they have 2 screens. Yeah, we
Uh,
got one to the left and one to the right.
oh
So,
my God, I'd be an illiterate.
well, I do when I go to court. I will take a paper file. I enjoy a paper file myself, but certainly, I mean, you have the options. But the technology has just gone through the roof, and especially over the last 4 or 5 years.
In your mode of operation, what do you dislike most, and what's your best part?
Okay, so I'm one that loved law school and has loved the practice of law. I love learning and growing every day. I love meeting people, and I'm driven by helping people, service driven. That's why I was a prosecutor for 11 years. I want to serve, I want to help. So the money will come. Certainly, you can have a nice living, but if you're honest and you treat people with kindness and empathy, and you're ethical and you're professional, the service part I really enjoy. Some of the parts that are more challenging, and I've done litigation for a long time, and now I'm doing about 85% estate planning, which is transactional. Some of the things that were more challenging or difficult is I'm big into professionalism and ethics, and when the lawyers are misbehaving, you're not supposed to do that. So dealing with someone that's difficult on the other side can be very challenging. Dealing with potentially clients, and generally I'm not going to take a client that's unreasonable or dishonest. I don't want them for a client. But when you deal with the other side, if they're unreasonable, I find that frustrating because you could get from A to B so efficiently, and you're not going to, for whether it's the opposing counsel, the opposing client, whatever, and it's actually going to cost the clients a lot more money when you don't navigate from A to B, and usually there's a common ground in just about all cases.
If there were a situation where a client wanted your services, and you heard the story, got all of the details, and you're on a borderline, whether you really believed it or not. Now, I know every attorney in the world believes everybody should have their day in court, fair and just.
Yes.
Okay. So putting that aside, that everyone deserves to be represented and get a fair trial, would you take a case where you really weren't convinced that the person was innocent, let's say?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't take those cases, and let's talk business because we're on a business
Of
show.
course,
So
yes.
some of the best decisions that attorneys make are not to take cases because you can potentially unleash havoc on your staff and your office. And so the interview, once your business is going, for a young lawyer, sometimes they call it door law. Whatever comes in the door, you got to take it because you got to make a living. But when I screen cases, so I'm interviewing the person as much as they're interviewing me for a good fit. And I don't want that person that's going to wreak havoc on my office or be difficult with paying their bill or be difficult with being reasonable about what a reasonable, based upon the facts and circumstances of their case. They're paying me for my advice, and if they're not going to listen to me, why are they paying me? So the other part of that is when you have a client, and the question that you asked went to criminal law to a degree. I don't do criminal defense, but I understand it because I prosecuted for 11 years. But you cannot suborn perjury, meaning if you know that they've lied, you can't help the lie. What you do is you ask open-ended questions and you allow them to go and say what they're going to say. So when I see that situation and I know that they're lying per se, I really don't want that person for a client. But certainly everybody is entitled to representation, and your ethical duty is you can be a zealous advocate within the bounds of the law.
And that's the key.
Yes.
In the bounds of the law. So if you, hypothetically, if you were halfway through a trial and you realized that it wasn't going the right way, that you made a mistake even taking this person as a client, could you or would you recluse yourself?
It's very rare that you can withdraw, and you can withdraw just about any time, but it's very rare that a judge or a court is going to allow you to dump someone in the middle of trial. But before trial, you can go in and you can file what is called a motion to withdraw, and for whatever, a conflict of interest, an inherent, you and the client don't agree or see eye to eye, and those happen routinely, motions to withdraw. My business model is I don't want to be that attorney that goes before the judge every month and says I want to get off the case.
Oh,
If
yeah.
I take a
Oh,
case,
yeah.
I want to see it through to the end.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, part of that is seasoning and experience in how do you, at your initial consultation, really get to know someone and know that you all see eye to eye. Now some lawyers, it's a business, so they will take clients, and if the client wants to do it, if it's ethical and zealously within the bounds that you're paying me, I'm happy to do it. My business model is a little different. Results matter to me. I don't want you to just pay me. I want you work hard for your money, and I want you to see the results that you're kind of seeking, and I'm going to give you from day one a reasonable expectation of what based on my training experience, where I see this thing heading.
Okay. I had a really dear friend up in Titusville. You may have heard of him. His name was Lou Semfronia. He was a criminal defense attorney. And there was a situation. I'd never been to a trial. There was a situation, and I want to get a college professor from the state college up in Brevard Community College, was accused of murdering his wife, throwing her in the back of a car, driving out in the woods in North Carolina and burying her. Anyway, Lou defended this guy, and it was such a high profile trial. I wanted to go see the trial and watch it. I knew Lou, played golf with him. Our wives belonged to sorority together, but I never saw him in a courtroom. He could have won an Academy Award. It was like, I didn't know it didn't look like it was the same guy, and he got him off.
Yeah, there are some amazingly talented trial. I did the prosecutor side, but I'm close friends with many a defense lawyer. And you do the case and you shake hands and you break bread after the case,
Yeah,
or
right.
during at the nights. But everybody does their job, and there are some very talented and skilled defense lawyers on the Treasure Coast that have that kind of skill set.
Well, you almost have to be an actor because you're playing to a jury. You're playing to the public, but a jury mostly. And so, I mean, and he had a partner by the name of Bob Telfer, who was the same. And Bob was really shocking because Lou was a little flamboyant, but Bob was kind of laid back. But I saw Bob in the trial too. It wasn't like the same person I knew. You
Oh
know,
yeah, I'm sure he was fantastic. And those kind of lawyers, their preparation
oh,
from jury selection, they've got a theme of their case,
mhm.
and they're planting that seed when they're picking the jury, and they're weaving that theme from their opening statement through their direct examination, cross-examination, closing statement, all the way through. So they're already educating the jurors on what's going to happen at the end, at the beginning, to help get the result that they're seeking. So these are some brilliant people that
Oh yeah,
understand,
they really
how to
are.
try a case.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
trying cases is a lot of fun. It's certainly the most work and the most stress, but the trial lawyers, they thrive on it. And I've done a ton of trials. I enjoy it, but I'm also at this point, I'm drafting estate plans. I'm helping elderly people, uncontested probates, and I'm enjoying the quality of life that I have right now.
Yeah, you would be the same as they were in front of us, right? Because you like people,
It's
you like
fun.
to talk to people, and you have fun. And so yeah, I'm sure you're in a trial, you would be the
Yeah,
same
and
way.
it's like you brought up the trial lawyer. So it's like being a teacher, an educator. Okay, you gotta when you present something to a jury, you gotta teach them in terms that they understand, not you understand. And so if you have an expert, you want to ask questions. If you don't know much about DNA, ask questions so the expert can help you, prepare for it. Ask questions so that the jury understands. And if you can't teach them in terms that they don't understand, you're going to fail. You're going to lose. So it's really you got to be good with language and good with being an educator and teaching people in terms that they understand.
Yeah, and I mean, this is, I think, common sense, but this, as trial attorney, you have to win over the jury, right?
No question.
And so, is that what their goal is to win the jury over, make the jury like you, make the jury believe what you're telling them? I mean, isn't that part of it?
Absolutely, to a degree. I will say there's a jury instruction that says you're not supposed to decide the case because you feel sorry for anyone or angry at anyone. However, everybody knows the reality is if a jury that I pick does not like me, I have failed. I was part of picking that jury, and if they don't like me or my case from the outset, you don't have a chance as soon as you start. So yes, that attorney and they better respect you or like your case to a degree because it will help with outcome. Now we can't change the facts, so some cases likability may not matter at all. If it's a strong case, they may say I hate the lawyer, but God, this was an easy case to
Yeah.
decide.
I was on a couple of times called to jury duty, and I really hated it. I mean, but my wife loved it. She wished, and she used to get picked on juries. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
her or
I
not, but
remember her
she was
well.
very opinionated. I don't know how she ever got picked. And she took it serious. But I never got picked. I would be called to jury duty. They would ask me a few questions and say, "Juror 11, you're out of here."
Yeah.
Excuse me. So
Part of
I
that
never
might have
got.
been everyone knows you in Martin County. So
Well, no, this is even in Brevard, but and they knew me up in Brevard too, though. So let's change gears a little bit. Big controversy years ago. I'm getting into advertising, especially
okay.
TV advertising. I think, I'm sorry, I think the most obnoxious ads on TV are lawyers. And that one guy, whatever his name is, he really aggravates me. Big fat face guy. Morgan, is it Morgan and Morgan? What do you think? What's your opinion about should lawyers be able? I mean, that's ambulance chasing, isn't it?
Yeah, the Florida bar regulates the ads, and so the content is regulated. And when I meet people from other states, they say I see these billboards on, every street sign, etc. I don't do the billboards or the TV, but it is effective for if you have a larger organization and you're trying to get
Well,
think about you
especially
get
PI,
thousands,
right?
yeah, you get thousands of cases in, and multiple of those cases you're going to get paid over $1 million. So you're playing the numbers, you're getting as many cases in as you can, and the regular everyday case pays the bills, and that bigger cases is going to make you successful and wealthy. But you are certainly not the only person that I've spoken to that it's aggravating to watch the commercials, and I'll leave it at that.
That guy Morgan and there's another guy, Lebovic. I would take a public defender before I would hire one of them. Sorry.
You're
You know,
fine.
we discussed a couple of things. Mostly, I think the things I would like people to know about you. And you, is there something we've missed that you'd like to cover and talk
So
about?
I will say a little bit about estate planning real
Please
quick.
do.
I'll
Yeah, of
say a few
course.
concepts in Florida. One, we don't have a state tax in Florida, which is a beautiful thing. There's plenty of states that do. That means whatever you leave behind, Florida is not taxing it, taking a piece of it, taking a cut of it. Two, we don't have inheritance tax. That means when you give to someone that's a resident of Florida, Florida is not taxing it, taking a piece of it, taking a cut of it. Of course, you can give to someone from another state, and they need to check with their accountant and say, I need to disclose my inheritance so my state can tax it. So we don't have a state tax. We don't have an inheritance tax. The third thing that I want to educate people about is we do not require probate. Probate is a court proceeding. If uncontested, generally lasts 6 months to a year. If contested,
Or more, right?
correct. If contested, it go years and years. And the point is, do I do plenty of probates? I certainly do, from word of mouth or from title companies. But this is not required. You don't have to have a lawyer and a court case on the back end. And so if you get your affairs in order on the front end, you will avoid that case. And, you certainly will pay less, and someone will have less time and less costs and less stress and dealing with creditors on the back end than if they button things up on the back end. Why do you do these documents? The word is capacity, meaning you have the ability to read, write, sign, and make a knowing, willing, voluntarily decision. If you die without a will, it's called passing intestate. And if you have that court case, the attorneys don't have discretion, the judge doesn't have discretion. We will follow the statutes, and what that means, and I'll give you two real quick examples. I get this call every year. My fiance of 20 years has passed, and I would like you to do this probate. And I say, well, I'm really sorry. If you were a co-owner or a beneficiary of an account, you can go get the accounts and go to the bank and get paid as the beneficiary or the transfer on death. And if you're on the property, depending on how the property is titled, you have your interest. However, Florida law doesn't recognize common law marriage, so I'm sorry to tell you, but in this court case, you will get nothing. And the fact that you had 19, 20 years together as fiancés, there needed to be a will in place. The other thing that I see is where someone passes away and like the husband is solely on the house title, marries a new wife, had kids before the wife, and then the husband passes, and then they come to me, sure, I can do the probate. But I'm telling you, your house is not your house. It's half your house and half all the kids because you didn't have a will. So if you want to make sure that if you have no plan, I would recommend that you get them so that you pick who's in charge, followed by a backup, and you pick who you're giving to, followed by a backup. If you do have a plan, make sure you review it, because once you become incapacitated, meaning dementia or Alzheimer's, or you pass away, you can't change it. And no one else can change your plan but you. So really, the message that I'm getting out is if you do a proper estate plan in advance, you actually are going to save a lot of time and money versus allowing the family to have a lot of work, time,
Save
money,
your
stress.
heirs a lot of
Absolutely.
heartache. So let me ask you a question. After Barb passed, obviously, I had my will changed. If I, for instance, if I had a specific item or a collection, and I want to leave that to specifically to one of my grandchildren, could I handwrite something and keep it with my will? Does it have to be notarized?
Yeah, no, the separate for personal property. We're talking about things with title. And with the wills that I do, it's called a separate writing memorandum, where you list a specific person, a specific item, and you certainly can do that and you keep it with your will. But let's talk real quickly, so this is a good education point, of most of the probates I do. If you have a will, in probate, a will be followed to the T. But before I get to the will, I talk about titling of assets. So anyone out there that owns a house by themselves, understand if you don't do deed work in advance and you pass away, you will have a probate. Because, and here's the example.
No, explain that.
I'm
I
going
have
to,
a house.
oh yeah, I'm going to explain it right now, which is great. We're
Okay.
going to, so this is the example of probate that I get. Lady has a will and has a condo. She gives everything to her daughter, and including the condo. Lady passes away, daughter goes to sell the condo, gets a realtor. They're not really supposed to contract, but they do, and I'll explain that in a second. They're the seller. They get a buyer. They have a contract. They're ready to close, and they go to the title company, and the title company says to the daughter and the realtor, you can't close. You need a probate and a court order. And the daughter holds up the will and says, why can't I close? Mom gave me the condo and everything else. And the title company says, you don't own it. The title company says, legal title to the house is the deed. Mom is on the deed and on the deed alone, so you can't sell something you don't own. So there's a fix for that. So that person, 100%, if you own real property by yourself and it's just in your name, you're going to have a probate. So if you don't need a trust, we have a statute for a enhanced life estate or ladybird deed, and which is another beautiful statute in Florida. So I pull the deed from the public records. I draft a new deed. This client signs it. I file it at the courthouse. This deed says this person owns their house. This person gives themselves a life estate. That's the right to live in their house for the rest of their life. They can rent this house. They can sell this house. They can mortgage this house. If the person they are giving to ticks them off, they can revoke this deed. If they do not change the deed and they pass, the new owner shall be one person, two persons, three persons, whoever you pick. And so the beauty of the Ladybird deed, and it was named after President Johnson's wife, Lady Bird Johnson. The beauty of it is you are not giving anyone a present possessory interest in your house. You're not giving them power, authority, control, or ownership. You are giving them a future conditional interest, and the condition is you pass away. Now, when you pass away, they get that house to do whatever they want. Or if you're giving to two people get the
So
house.
my kids are listed as my heirs.
Yes, and if you want to
So am
avoid
I okay?
probate, you're going to do a ladybird deed. And there's going to be a deed. You keep your homestead. You're going to need a deed that's filed with the courthouse that says when Joe passes away, the new owners of Joe's house are his kids. And that's that easy for your kids. They file a death certificate. They are the new owners.
But I have to.
Yeah.
I have to take action.
You do.
Okay.
Yes, and that's a misnomer. That's the 90+% of probates that I do are on real property, because people don't realize that I've got a will that I give to everybody, but they don't realize that before we even get to the will, we're looking at the titles of your assets, which means your stocks, your bonds, your CDs, your IRAs, your 401ks, your checking, your savings, and your real property. Do you have beneficiaries? Do you have TOD transfer? That avoids probate. They write them a check. Now, if you have rules for your family, meaning I don't just want to give them everything, or they have, and it's not your family, but alcohol issues, drug issues, mental illness, fiscal irresponsibility, then we talk trust.
Okay.
And the trust can hold the money and live a lot longer than you, so that someone doesn't blow it in 3 months, etc. So yeah.
You and I are going to have to sit down.
Oh,
and
we
talk,
will,
because I mean, I just have my kids listed as my heirs. I've done nothing else to avoid probate or whatever. All I thought, as long as I had my kids listed as my heirs, I was covered.
It's
and
an
they
easy
were
fix.
covered.
It's an easy fix
well,
for me. I do the Ladybird deeds every week.
Great.
So
you and I will have to talk
absolutely.
About that. We good?
We're good. I just want to say thank you. This is my friend Joe. I call him Joey
you.
C. And Joey C, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
When I was a kid growing up, all my friends called me Joey. No one else is called me Joey until you.
Well, I'm glad someone reminds you of your
Yeah, it
childhood
does.
where they call you Joey C. So thank you so much for
My pleasure.
It was
Thank
a pleasure.
you. That's great.
Thank you.
And informative. It was really good.
Thank you.
Thank you again.